We warmly welcome all of you to our Executive Diploma virtual open event. I'm Tanuja Pereira Childs, and I'm one of the business development managers here at Warwick Business School. I'm also joined by my lovely colleague, Penny Triantafelu. Yeah, so here's our agenda for today. Before that, I'd like to once again, welcome all of you. We will look at the diplomas first. Tim will go over the diplomas to start with, and you will hear from our current participants afterwards. And there will also be an interactive Q&A session. Afterwards, we will invite our Professor Mairead Brady, who's going to be the course director for the new Executive Diploma in B2B Marketing. Finally, Penny will share some information about our diverse cohorts, networking opportunities, scholarships, and the application process. So it's my pleasure to introduce you to our host today, Professor Tim Ray. Tim is the Director of Executive Education, one of our professors of practice, and also he also leads on the Executive Diploma in Organizational Change. We hope you'll enjoy the session today. Without further ado, here's Tim. Tim, over to you.
So thank you very much indeed, Tanuja, and welcome again to everyone. I'm going to say a couple of words just about the business school and the diplomas by way of introduction, but we obviously want to spend the majority of our time, first of all, hearing from the participant panel that we've assembled, and then subsequently opening it up to questions and answers. I know from your perspective, you are most interested in hearing from those who've been on this journey already. So I'll keep my remarks short and hopefully relatively focused. So we've just popped up a slide. I was on a meeting this morning online with a global energy giant that we are now working with. And actually, could I just maybe say, if you haven't got your, if you're not muted, you might just mute your microphone. Just I'm getting a little bit of feedback there. Yeah, that's super. Thank you very much indeed. So yes, I was on. I've already hosted a global event earlier this morning with, as I say, a global energy giant that we are partnering with in the delivery of a new executive master's program. And they partner with, as they described it themselves, a range of top-tier business schools from around the globe, and you'll be familiar with many of the names. And I suppose this slide here that you can see at the moment is a very shorthand way of quickly reassuring you that you're in good hands when you come to Warwick Business School, and that you are indeed working with a top-tier global business school. We've just included some headline rankings that if you have managed to find us and come this far in the your journey in terms of exploring the possibility of signing up for one of the diplomas and joining us, I'm sure you've already encountered some of these rankings, but worth repeating nevertheless. We have been ranked for the last 3 years #1 with our global distance learning MBA by the Financial Times, which is the preeminent ranking of executive education programs. And our full-time MBA and executive MBA are both ranked #1 in the UK. Interestingly, even in the last few weeks, the Financial Times announced a new ranking, what it calls Teaching Power. And Warwick Business School, I'm very pleased to say, was ranked second in that list, described by the FT as the second most influential business school globally, just pipped by Harvard. and that ranking is based on the number of citations of the works of your faculty on sort of reading lists and teaching lists of business schools globally. So we were obviously delighted to see that ranking emerge. And while we don't fixate on rankings, it is nice to have that recognition of the quality of our work, both from a research and teaching perspective. And I hope from your perspective, as I say, the main message is that is reassurance that you are dealing with a top-tier business school, and that the quality of the teaching faculty that you will encounter will be top class. And indeed, you may wish to not take my word for that, but to ask the panelists, the participants who have been working with us over the last 12 months, that get them to say if that's been their experience, and I certainly hope that it has been. So just a little bit about rankings and about the business school overall. We have up to now had a suite of 4 executive diplomas, and as Penny mentioned, we will be launching our B2B marketing exec diploma. When I say launching, it's been launched. It will be running for the first time in the early spring of next year. So we're delighted to add that program to the suite, and indeed we hope to be adding an exec diploma in behavioral science to that suite over the next couple of months as well. That's a program that's been approved within the university, so we're just kind of packaging that now for launch. I think it's important to say that these programs sort of didn't drop out of the sky. It's been very much market-led. We did some extensive research, first of all, among our own global alumni. So the business school has about 50,000 graduates globally, and of course, on completion of this program of a diploma, you'll be joining that alumni community, which is a really important aspect. In fact, you'll be able to access that community from the moment that you begin to participate on the program, and we have a number of professional networks and a number of regional networks that are very vibrant and provide tremendous opportunities for ongoing connection and networking among our learning community globally. But we did some research among that community, and then followed it up a year later with more research among corporate L&D folk, and the themes that you see there around agility, strategic agility, around leadership, around digital transformation. These are the themes that surfaced again and again and again. So we firmly believe, and indeed the Financial Times itself published its own research about 2 months ago, I think now, where it did significant research among corporates, and again these same themes surfaced. So we are confident that these themes represent significant business challenges that organizations are grappling with, and so we hope that these programs represent not only the opportunity for you to build your own personal capabilities, but also for the organizations to find solutions to really significant problems for themselves. I think a couple of other comments about the diplomas. One is that they are specialists. They are a deep dive into the subject matter. That's what in some respects differentiates them from something like an executive MBA, which is more a general management degree looking at kind of all aspects. So often people who will come to participate in the programs with a very kind of clear mindset around the gap in their capability that they are looking to close. So that that deep dive piece is very important. I think the other important aspect that marks out the diplomas is the application aspect. So we view these programs as extremely applied. as a business school, we operate in that way. We seek we aspire to the belief that all of our programs have a strong application in practice. We are interested not just in the learning, but in how that learning affects and impacts your practice as a senior executive, and sharpens that and enables you to make an even greater impact. And of course, the programs, because we're working with very experienced executives, very much seeks to leverage that experience. And our faculty are skilled at not just teaching, but also facilitating the discussion, such that the ideas that they're bringing into the room simply become a catalyst to surface the experience of the executives in the room, so that there's significant learning across the room, and not just from the faculty to those who are participating. So that collective, co-created learning experience is very, very critical indeed. The final thing to say is just to note the structure of the diplomas. They're all 16 days. They are delivered over four-day modules, spaced out over either the academic year or the calendar year, depending on their start date. So the class sizes are relatively small, so most of our classes are 15 to 20 in number, and what that means is there's sufficient diversity in the room to create a very strong learning experience, but also the ability to really engage with faculty and to really ensure that the experience becomes one very tailored to your own specific needs and requirements. So I'm not going to say anything more. As I say, I'm keen that we get our participants involved and engaged. Let me just point you to the chat box. We'll hear from each of our guests on the panel. I'm going to ask the four participants representing each of the four exec diplomas to contribute some of their comments, and then at the end I'm going to ask Mairead to come in as well. If you'd like to take note of anything that's said that you want to explore further, or any comment that's made that perhaps stimulates your thinking and you want to pursue further, feel free to just take a note of that and then put it into the chat column, where we can pick it up and we can put the question to the panel. So I am delighted to have these four guests. Thank you all for your time today. We have Manal Al-Suri, who's the Vice President of People Experience at Emirates Group. And Manal has been a participant on the Executive Diploma in Digital Leadership. Craig Pashler is the CFO of EACT and is a participant on the program that I look after myself, the Exec Diploma in Organizational Change. So Craig and myself have got to know each other well over the last number of months. Trevor Hoyle is the Senior Vice President of Ground Operations at FedEx, a participant on the Executive Diploma in Strategy and Innovation, and the holder of a ticket to the European Nations final on Sunday night. And Anne McComish is Head of Finance, Reporting and Communications at AIB Bank in Ireland, and is a participant on the Executive Diploma in Strategic Leadership. So I'm going to, Manal, if you don't mind, if I could come to you first. I'm simply going to follow the order and the pictures on the screen in front of me here, and maybe we take the slides down for the moment. And Manal, I'm going to just pose a couple of relatively straightforward kind of questions to get us warmed up. And one is, I'm interested in what was your motivation to come onto the program and to participate in the Executive Diploma? And then secondly, perhaps to say to date, what has been your most valuable takeaway? What have been the things that have impacted most for you? So those two questions. What was your motivation for coming on the program, and what has been the most valuable takeaway?
So the motivation is curiosity. In terms of how can I leverage the digital innovation under the people experience strategy. There's a lot of items out there in terms of organizations transforming themselves from a people experience, from hire to retire, the journey, the moments that matter. And I found that the modules offered under this executive diploma made sense to me to be able to help understand how I can transform the HR function in terms of the digital roadmap and understanding how to use design thinking and the personas to be able to design my digital strategy for over the next 3 to 5 years. In terms of the, I guess, the value and what I'm taking away is a lot. There's definitely a lot of learnings, and the assignments that I have tackled in this module brought a lot of the concepts that we learned in the module to life. So if it is artificial intelligence implementation in recruitment, or it's the platform strategy components to identify talent, were a lot of the value adds I took from this module.
I'm intrigued, Manal, that you said something very interesting there. That I know those listening in may be a little bit skeptical about. You almost sounded grateful for the assignment aspect of the program.
I love them, Tim.
And what pleased me was that we often describe the assignments as it is a way, of course, of assessing learning on the program, and we have to have that there because of the qualification. But I like to think of it as being a bridge into practice. How has that been for you?
I've actually, all of the assignments I attempted were things that I wanted to bring into the MH group, from if it was artificial intelligence in the recruitment sphere, or if it was around data insights and analysis. I've used the assignment to help support my learning and implement what I learned into the business. I found it quite useful, and I really enjoyed those assignments. It did bring me back in time in terms of my college years, which was, managing children, and the assignments was definitely difficult, but I really enjoyed it.
So I wish I could just capture that sentence, that I thoroughly enjoyed the assignments. If I could play that back, that would be fantastic. But I think there's a really important point there, which I think is really, really interesting. How you have made use of and created value from the assignments in using them as a way of almost creating the business plan around each of those areas that you mentioned. So making the implementation and the application very very concrete indeed. And I'm gonna just hold you there for a moment. I'm gonna bring some other people in, and we'll be back to you. If Trevor, if I could come to you and perhaps pose those same questions, because different people will have different motivations and different perspectives. So from your perspective, you're a very senior executive in FedEx and been on the road for some time. What was the motivation for you to enter this program, and what's been the most valuable takeaway?
Well, as a very youthful 60-year-old, I'm probably the oldest person in my cohort And it's a good question, because we had the discussion in the cohort about our different motivations. And for me, I think it was recognition that I am in a very senior role. The business continues to evolve and change, and the world around us changes even faster, especially in a post-COVID environment. And it was really thinking about, how do I continue to raise my game and contribute more in order that I can stay, ahead and keep pace with all that change. Because I think wherever you get in the business, no matter how senior, you have to keep growing and keeping pace. And so for me, it was, let's go and get a different perspective and do something academic to blend with the experience that I've got day to day. And that sort of really leads me into your second question, was about lasting impact. I found that whilst I wouldn't say that I enjoyed the modules at the time, the assignments, I enjoyed finishing them and submitting them. But I must admit, I got a lot of value from them, because it made you think about all the theoretical aspects of the models and the theories, and how do I take this into the workplace, and how do I apply it? And we've got so many things going on that there was lots of different things that I was able to apply in terms of the modules. So I found that really useful. And also, as somebody that's never really done anything this academic before, because I never went through university or anything like that, I've worked my way up through the business from the shop floor over the last 25 years, is that it's helped me to sort of step back and frame things differently, and reevaluate how I can position things. So that's one of the things that it's given me with some of those frameworks, being able to, I guess, convey things that I knew but and articulate them in a much more structured way that makes it easier for people that don't have my experience in operations grasp the business impact of them.
And I think that's a really important insight, Trevor. So I will sometimes use the phrase when I'm chatting to people about programs like this, and I'll talk about harvesting their experience. And I think they look at me a little bit puzzled. But what I really mean by that is that so someone like yourself has vast experience, but as you've just described it there, it's almost an ability to take that experience and to structure it, as you've said, and put a language on it and organize it in a way that allows you to make even more use of that experience. So I think that's a kind of a really interesting piece. I'm tempted to ask, because you have a European-wide role, and it's a busy day job, to say the least. How did you manage all this alongside the day job?
I approached it the way that I do things in my job, that if I've got a major project on, you have to think ahead and plan time for it and structure it. And so I took the same approach that I would if I'd been given a major project at work, thinking, blocking dates out, blocking time out for reading, for assignments, etc. And then just trying to make sure that you balance it with all the other things that you've got going on. So, and like with the day job, sometimes you have to reprioritize a few things, but it's taking that same approach that you would in the day job. Plan ahead, reprioritize when you need to, and it's amazing what you can fit in when you think, because a lot of people in the business have asked me that same question. How do you find time to do this when you've got a job as busy as you are? And it really is just about that planning it. Just plan, and you can find time for things that you'd probably spend doing. I've watched a lot less telly, put it that way. So, but the return on it for reading a paper instead of watching, a game of football or whatever it might have been done, has been very valuable. So yeah, it's all about planning.
I just while I see it there, we're going to do most of the questions after this, but I see Chris Cook has just put a question there. Trevor, have you managed to tie the outcomes from the assignments back into the workplace?
Yes, I think my problem was the opposite to some of the people in my cohort, that I've got so much going on in the business, especially, if you think about the business we're in a post-COVID environment, we've had massive shifts in our business. We're a global business, so wherever things are ebbing and flying around the world, we're having to adapt to it. So my challenge was often, which bit do I prioritize applying things to, rather than struggling to find what can I apply this to. So that's often been the challenge I've had, that I've had 4 or 5 things and I think, which am I going to do first? But that comes back to that experience of the day job again, about prioritizing where you're going to find the most value in using it first. So and I think it's also enabled me also, because one of the things I do is I do quite a bit of coaching and mentoring at work, is to try and apply some of it as well in the way I coach and mentor people for their own development.
Super, Trevor. I'm going to hold you there for a moment. I'm going to bring in Anne, and Anne has been participating on the Diploma in Strategic Leadership. And Anne, I'm going to ask you, kind of pose the same questions around why did you get into this in the first place, and secondly, what have you felt has been, what difference has it made for you? What's been the real kind of the most valuable takeaway so far?
Good morning, everyone, and delighted to be here. Calling from sunny Dublin here in Ireland. For me, it was as I moved up in seniority within the organisation. My background is finance, so I'm an accountant. I was finding that being a specialist was no longer required in my role, because I had a team to do that. So I was suddenly in a position where I had to think more strategically, and you find yourself in a position where you might not have had a lot of experience in it, or you mightn't had a lot of learning in it. So I would have spoken to my manager about the possibility of getting more exposure within the organisation, or the possibility of going down the academic route. And when I looked into Warwick Business School, I really liked the structure that, there was the 4 modules over 4 days, so it really fit in with my busy work schedule and my life as well. But I also liked the fact that it was looking at lead self, lead others, and lead the business. So there were 3 very definitive kind of roads that you went down on the course as well. So I found that very interesting as well. And then the various lecturers that were available on the modules, so, these were very experienced people who had hands-on experience working with executives in different organizations about strategic change and strategic leadership. And that was super to have throughout the course as well, just feeding off their experience. The big things that I have taken away from the course, just like all the other speakers, the assignments, a lot of our assignments were reflective, or using strategic change that happened within our organization. So it was really interesting to actually take that as a business case and apply the theories and the learning from the course as to what went wrong or what went right, and if you were CEO, what would you have done differently. That was really good. Looking at things like emotional intelligence and self-awareness, so you covered everything that a strategic leader would need to cover.
I'm tempted to ask Anne, it was a leadership program, and well, I'm going to say you can tell me to go away if this is not the question to ask, but I'm not asking it in front of whatever it is, 50 people. How do you think you are different as a leader as a result of this? How do you feel? Because you mentioned the 3 pillars of the program: leading self, leading others, leading the business, and I suppose I'm looking at the one leading self here, because as you've said, there's a lot of reflection of the program, a lot of thinking about how you lead, your impact on others. Is there anything you point to and say, well, there's something I'm doing differently, or that's how I'm leading it differently in small ways? Could you point to sort of specific ways you think you are now leading differently and are different as a leader?
I think one part of the course we do is adaptive leadership, and I suppose they use the metaphor of getting off the dance floor and standing on the balcony. And it's all about kind of looking at, you know, the bigger picture. You know, sometimes we get lost in doing the day-to-day job and actually not standing back and going, okay, well, what are we doing? What are our competitors doing? Is this right? And like particularly with COVID last year, you know, we may have had a strategy in place for, you know, the second half of the year, but with our changed ways of working, you need to stand back and go, okay, do we need to change things up a little bit? So I was head of internal comms, so suddenly we had to change our channels of communication because our staff were all working from home. You know, so that allowed me just to kind of step back and look at the bigger picture and what we were trying to achieve.
And Anne, you mentioned the practical experience of people who were teaching in the room, and I can imagine you're talking about people like, I think, John Colley, perhaps, you know, worked
yes.
with. Do you want to still elaborate on that? And maybe I should say that Warwick Business School was the first business school to appoint professors of practice. So people who had a foot in both worlds, if you like, of academia, but real life experience as well. That you found beneficial.
It was excellent. So if you were doing 4 modules 4 days a week and you had the same lecture, sometimes you're just not going to gel with the lecture and, you know, fall asleep and not find it very interesting. But every day we had a different lecture, and we had guest speakers come in to talk about their experience as well. So you got something different from every lecture. Every lecture approached the lecture differently. It was either, you know, case studies or hands-on experience, or, you know, we'd have breakout rooms to discuss some of the readings that we had as well. And I think just having that variety and just that wealth of experience was hugely beneficial.
Super. Thank you, Anne. I'm just watching the clock, so I'm going to just hold you there for a moment, and I'm going to bring in our final panelist, Craig Pashler. Craig, great to have you here. As I mentioned earlier, we've been on a journey together for some months, and the organisation that you work for is a really interesting one. Might give us 2 sentences. Just give us 2 sentences on EACT, because of all of the organisations that we mentioned, I think, you know, FedEx, Emirates Airlines, and AIB Bank, people will be fairly clear on what those organisations do. Just give me 2 sentences for everybody on what your organisation does.
Yeah, sure. So EACT doesn't really say much. We are a government-funded educational charity, for want of a better phrase. So we're classed as an exempt charity, but we run at the moment 28 schools across the country, serving the most deprived areas within the country. So inner city Birmingham, Manchester, Bristol, London, and Northampton. So we're quite a spread out organisation, albeit we're clustered in those areas. We've got a very, very, very small head office, which is in a place called Kettering, which there's no logic to why that's there. But I mean, I could talk through that story, but yeah, that's where I've ended up. So we're serving the age group of 6 months old up to 19 years old in education.
Okay, super. So I think it's just really interesting because it's such a different context from some of the organisations, and of course, when we look at, even we've got a bank, we've got FedEx, transportation and distribution, we've got Emirates Airline, one of the, you know, global blue chip airlines, and we've got EACT, and it's just a little microcosm of the diversity of the participants coming onto the program. So Craig, same questions for yourself then. You are the CFO of the organisation. What made you think about taking on a program in organisational change?
So my answer is very similar to Trevor and Anne's, really. So I found myself, I was a specialist, I was started as an accountant, worked my way up to CFO, but I did realise probably about 10 years ago now that you couldn't be just a specialist. You couldn't be just be doing one area of the business. So I did an MBA with Warwick 9 years ago, and I think coming back to do this course is testament to how good that course was as well. So I didn't want to be very narrow-minded in my views, and I've got to a point now where, as Anne said, other people kind of crunch the numbers now, and and they do it far better than what I can and far quicker. So my views and my discussions I have are very much with other executives, what's happening, and we're a people-based organisation, so 75% of our cost is people. So a lot of conversations around culture, motivation, making sure it's a good place to work. Those kind of conversations are what I'm involved in, and then the finance, how we leverage finance to support that kind of model. So yes, so the motivation was really just to make sure my bandwidth as I got to this level was I could keep up with my peers and be part of that conversation.
Yes, and then the second one is one about kind of impact and value. So has the learning, has it begun to land for you already in terms of things that you are doing? Have you found it practical, applied? Have you been able to take the learning and start to do things with it?
Yes, so on my course, we doubled up with the strategy cohort on our first day. This is probably the biggest impact I've had. So I literally come off that course. A couple of weeks later, I'm in a meeting where instantly I'm discussing the things, and I'm bringing the language from the course into those meetings. And the end of that was I ended up taking on marketing for a year, which was was not expected. There's no way you'd give a finance guy marketing, but it kind of, the conversation moved that quickly, and now I've got marketing reporting to me. So my input in those conversations with the CEO, with the deputy CEO, they obviously thought that I knew what I was talking about. So so instant impact from there. Other areas, I would say that it is academic, but the approach from Warwick, my experience is case study based. So you can relate the tools you get from the academia to case studies in the lesson, and then when you move on to the assignments, I won't go as far as saying I love them, but they do embed the knowledge and the learning as you go back through, especially the online delivery, which is brilliant, and I really hope you guys keep it going. But you remember yourself that you'll go back to a video and you'll say, oh yeah, and you'll watch that video again, and the bits that you completely forgot about, but doing the assignment brings it all back to the fore again. So assignments are really valuable in my view. I think that's...
Craig, that's super. Thank you for that, and really interesting to hear. I'm just watching the clock, and I'm really anxious to kind of get the panel tackling the questions from the audience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pick up on your point, Craig, and use it as a segue to Mairead. I'm delighted to hear that you managed to use your learning from the program to acquire another function under your wing, and that was marketing, and that perhaps the B2B marketing diploma is now one that you should be doing as a result. I don't know. I'm going to bring Mairead in. She'll probably be sending you some details immediately after this, Craig. Obviously, we don't have any participants to bring in on the marketing diploma because it hasn't run yet. So we've asked Mairead here today as the course director to talk to us a little bit about the program. So Mairead, would you like to say a little bit about the B2B marketing diploma? What is the diploma about? Who is it for? What's the value you're likely to take away from it?
Yes, thank you, Tim. I'm delighted to talk about this new program. The wonder of this program is that it kind of operates in the area that Craig was talking about, and all our panelists have talked about this idea of, can we understand the changes that are occurring, and particularly business to business marketing, which is a critical aspect of companies all along their supply chain, that they need the leading expertise and that cutting edge marketing excellence. And how do they handle both the strategic element of the planning and also the tactical element of the relationships with the customers, both day to day, but these enormous complex and relationships that have longevity. So how do we kind of bring these all together in a coherent kind of diploma? And what we've done is we've developed this under 4 modules, and some of them are the modules that Anne was talking about and Craig, and they really kind of capitalize on 4 defined routes. The first is marketing strategy and planning. The second is customer experience management. The third is digital transformation, and particularly within the sales focus or the sales area. And lastly, innovation, culture. How do we bring in that kind of culture of innovation at the customer interface when it's a business to business relationship? So I think that gives you kind of a whistle stop tour through the new diploma and what a delegate can expect.
Excellent, Mairead, and just to kind of pick up on that piece around digital, it sounds like digital will be a very strong theme.
It has to be. I think Anne mentioned it there with the transformation or the digital transformation that occurred because of the pandemic and that rapid embracing of digitalization throughout the whole supply chain, you know, automation, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and then critically at the customer interface, how do we deal with this through social media, even how do we deal with this person to person, but how do we deal with this virtually? And the big question we'll be asking is, what is driving your digital transformation decisions? Are you being driven by a technology efficiency? Are you being driven by a customer centricity? And how do we marry these two along these, when these changes are occurring right now as we go hopefully post-pandemic? So yeah, huge part of this would be digital and digital transformation.
Super. Thank you, Mairead. So that's just a little flavour and a heads up around the marketing diploma. So we have about 10 minutes. We've heard from all of our panelists, but they're all ready and waiting to take any questions that might surface. But let me just yeah. So Penny's actually just answered the question. I'm going to pick up Chris's question there. Come September, October, is it intended to deliver the courses online or by attendance? First thing to say is that the programs that were delivered last year because of the pandemic obviously were delivered entirely online. I mentioned at the very front end, our distance learning MBA is ranked #1 globally, and we use the same platform to deliver the executive diplomas, and certainly, you know, broadly the feedback has been very kind of positive around that experience. It is our hope, and we're obviously watching all of the announcements by government that are taking place, you know, even as we speak. There was more announcements today, so there's a very kind of dynamic and fast changing situation. Our plan is to deliver those programs that are scheduled for the autumn face-to-face in the Shard in London, which is our base for these programs. But if obviously the public health information changed, or guidance changed, or indeed if people are not able to make it, we have a hybrid capability where we can deliver to the classroom and also deliver online simultaneously. I wonder, Manal, I'll kind of come back to you if you want to just, I'm just interested, you obviously are based in Dubai, and I'm wondering how, you know, we all know the face-to-face is kind of ideal when we can meet in person, and I think the online experience will never be just quite there, but what was your experience of the online delivery to date?
From an online delivery, it was I guess the online element was quite smooth. You know, sometimes we had issues around technology and, you know, connectivity, but overall I found it quite engaging. The team was really engaged. And I would have preferred a face-to-face experience just because there was so much to learn from my colleagues globally that I felt like I missed out on that, especially, you know, during the breaks and stuff. And sitting behind a PC for those many hours is draining. But I must say the experience was seamless. Very rarely did we have any technical issues, and we did go out to those breakout rooms digitally, and, you know, it was quite interactive and engaging. But nevertheless, you do miss that sense of that face-to-face and personal experience.
And of course, we are we're certainly planning and hoping to bring the cohort that has just completed the modules to bring you together in the Shard sometime in the near future. We would love to do that. But just interesting to hear how that experience has been for you. Any other of the panelists want to kind of comment on that? Because obviously, our plan is face-to-face at all, if at all possible. Certainly within England, the public health guidance is going that direction. But I think for many of us, travel may be limited, and it may be that it has to be online. Craig, you I think mentioned the online experience. Any thoughts that obviously it has the benefit of being able to go back and review some of the material? Can you hear me, Craig?
Oh, sorry, I was wrong button. Yeah, benefit of going back, but the online experience absolutely worked. So that I didn't feel like we'd lost out on any education. The way that the breakout rooms work, the interaction, we've got it now. It just it just absolutely worked. So I would genuinely hope that offers will continued going forward.
Thanks, Craig. And perhaps Trevor, if I can come to you, and then I'll come back to Anne with a question. If Trevor, if somebody out there is thinking about this and they're mulling around in their head whether they should decide to come on a diploma or not, if they're at that particular point in the decision-making journey, have you any advice for them? What would you say to them in terms of things to think about, consider as you're looking at the different programs?
Well, I think the first piece of advice I'd give somebody is stop thinking and do, because I think that, I certainly thought about doing a program like this previously and never did, and having done it, I wish I had done it a couple of years ago, and got the benefit much earlier. So I'd say stop thinking, go do, but then it's just about planning your time and scheduling. As I said earlier on, you can fit this in around a busy day job, providing you plan ahead and organise yourself for it. So that would be the advice that I'd give.
Excellent, thanks, Trevor. And Anne, if I can kind of come back to you again, I have no doubt, and this obviously has been mentioned a couple of times by different people on the panel, but I would imagine that one of the biggest questions at the forefront of people's minds as they're considering coming on a program like this is workload. And what does that workload look like and feel like? How do you balance it with a busy day job and various other commitments? What has that experience been like for you?
I'd say don't get overwhelmed. I remember after module 1, and you get a series of pre-reads to do before the module. You also have an introduction to my WBS, which is the portal where everything is held. And I remember thinking, what have I signed up for? That I just thought it was very overwhelming. But the great thing was that all of the people on the course were feeling the same way as well, having not done anything academically for about 30 years. And my background is finance. I'd never written anything before as well. So a lot of people on the course were feeling the exact same way. So being the typical accountant, like Trevor said, I approached module 2 with a plan on a page. You have about 8 weeks between each module. So you will have a series of pre-reading to do. So I would have planned that out over the series of the weeks. And you also have to get your assignments done as well. So it's a bit like how do you eat an elephant? In small chunks. You do it bit by bit. And I think if you plan it and you have in your week, you know that you're going to spend an hour after work reading some documentation or some Harvard Business Review, you'll do it. And I think you'll just find the time to do it.
I think that's absolutely excellent advice. How to eat an elephant in chunks is brilliant advice, excellent advice. I'm going to kind of open this one up to any of our panel. This is my last kind of question, and then I'm going to hand over to my colleague Thanuja just to wrap up. But I'm interested. Was there anything that you didn't anticipate? Any surprises? Anything novel that either in a positive sense that you thought that was really good, or perhaps even in a negative sense of something jumped up that would be a watch out? But anything you didn't anticipate? Any surprises? Anybody like to venture an answer to that? Anne?
I think the level of work that was required, I think initially when you look at 4 days, you kind of go, oh, that's grand, I'll manage that. And then seeing the pre-reading that you have to do beforehand, and then the assignments, there is a lot of work, so just be prepared for that. But it could be a Harvard Business Review that's 5 pages long, so make sure that you don't get overwhelmed by it. That was my takeaway from it at the beginning, going, oh my God, this is actually going to be an awful lot more than I had anticipated it would be. But it was all good. You got into a routine.
Excellent. And I think there's a point there about to extract the full value from the 4 days, doing the preparation work thoroughly, having read this case studies, etc., is really important. So yeah, interesting. And anybody else, or maybe it was all as you expected it? I don't see any offers of any other surprises. Manal, yes.
When I went onto this program, I didn't expect the assignments and the amount of reading. I assumed it was just attend modules, and it was a shock in terms of the required commitment. But that once you get used to the cadence and the way and the timelines, it got better after module 1. So similar to Anne, it's really needing to plan. So for me, I didn't know that I needed to do all of those assignments. I enjoyed them thoroughly, but that wasn't very clear to me up front when it was pitched by my organization on for this.
Super. Excellent. Thank you, Manal. That's a very interesting point, really important point. So, folks, can I thank all of our panelists? It's been a joy on our part to work with each of you. I know that you are still wrapping up assignments from module 4s, I would imagine. And beginning to look at the project module, which is the kind of major kind of capstone assignment at the end of the process. Manal, just actually before I leave, one further kind of question for you, because you are in an senior HR role within Emirates. If there are other HR, L&D decision makers out there kind of exploring executive programs and leadership development, would you have any thoughts for them regarding the Warwick Executive Diplomas from your experience?
From my perspective, it has to be a two-way communication, right? So the HR or L&D, when they're looking at this, is the relevance to the organization and the professional development aspiration of the employee, and having that match in terms of recommending these executive diplomas. For me, it came at the right time. Recently appointed into the VP People Experience role, needing to transform HR from a hire to retire element. This for me was it hit the nail on the head. I loved the program. It was super relevant for me and right at the right time. And so for HR professionals or the L&D is to have that dialogue and recommend a professional leadership development that is relevant for both parties, so that the return of investment is there.
Yeah, super. I think that's super advice. Thank you for that. Both the individual relevance and the organizational impact and capability building piece. Brilliant. Folks, thank you very, very much indeed. As I say, it's been our privilege to have you on the programs, and let me wish you every success as you kind of wrap up and conclude the remaining assignments. And of course, as I've said earlier, We hope that you don't go very far away from us, because you're very much part of that wider learning community with 50,000 graduates globally, and very active regional groups of alumni. So we hope that we will continue to have to work with you closely even after you leave the diplomas. I'm going to hand over to, I think in fact it's Penny, who may be picking it up,
Yes,
just to wrap up with the last couple of comments. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Tim. Great hosting job as always. But on behalf of Thanuja and I, we would like to say a massive thanks to Manal, to Anne, Craig, Trevor, for their inspiring first-hand accounts about the diplomas. There's nothing like hearing it directly from them. And it sounds like it's been a brilliant experience in perhaps one of the darkest times for many of us over the past year. So congrats for achieving all that you've had. It's so impressive. And of course, our sincerest thanks to Mairead. Mairead, thanks for telling us more about the newly launched Executive Diploma in B2B Marketing. It promises to be another amazing program. We can't wait to welcome the inaugural cohort next year. So we'd like to share a few slides before we go. Abigail, if you can put up those slides. And some of the information on these last slides are kind of talking already about things that Tim has alluded to, but here you go. So we've already witnessed, as we said, the amazing diversity from the panel today, banking sector, charity sector, and so on. And we truly value and have diversity in terms of seniority, of gender, background, industries, and so on. And that's something that makes the overall learning experience much more rich. Peer-to-peer learning is very much an integral and a special part of the program. So the next slide, you can see here our participants are international, coming from all four corners of the world. And I'm proud to say we have someone from my native Canada joining us in September, as well as from other fantastic places. So that is just fantastic. And here you can see examples of some of the prestigious organizations and job titles represented in this year's cohort. Again, just showing the high caliber we attract and the range of sectors and senior leaders that do join us. Tim has alluded to this before, but I'm going to just say quickly, we'd be joining rather a worldwide WBS community via our LinkedIn group that you see there, but also via our global community. 50,000 graduates, over 140 countries. It's just amazing. You can connect with specific individuals and activities delivered for those communities. But we also have the professional networks, as you can see here. There's 8 of them. There's 7 global networks. But the alumni network isn't confined just to WBS. You'd also be a part of the greater University of Warwick alumni, and I think that's over 240,000 graduates at the moment. And here are some of those professional networks. Work Strategy and Consulting Professional Network. The Finance Professional Network is quite active and does a lot of events at the Shard, etc. So just another way for you to engage with us. Here are just a few tips before we go as well. Regarding the entry requirements, we do ask for a minimum of 5 years of managerial experience, whether that's managing people, budgets, processes, projects. And we do ask that you upload your CV as part of the application and ensure that your CV lists some of your key achievements to show what impact you've had, what you've added, what value you have added, and so on. And if you're unsure, we'd be more than happy to send your CV to the team just to do a quick CV review. We'd also ask that you upload a short essay telling us the reason why you'd like to do the diploma. So you can mention how it will impact your career goals for the future, how you see the diploma helping you with your plans and get you really to the next step in your professional development. And as far as references go, there is space for 3 references. We only require 1, and that would normally be your line manager's reference. And you can choose to send the reference request now, or we can send it later when you tell us that it's okay to do so. And finally, if you would like to apply for a scholarship, just submit a statement in the funding section of the actual application form, demonstrating how you embody our core values, which are listed on the website. So make sure to include your major achievements, your successes, your initiatives, leadership impact. I mean, this is not the time to be shy. Don't be modest, because we rely on the input that you provide. So, you could talk about your professional and your personal experience. Tell us what makes you stand out. I mean, how would your background and diverse experience benefit your peers in terms of contributing to the rich discussions in the class, for example? And here you see, last but not least, we have merit-based scholarships. They're limited. They're up to 50% of the fees, and they are awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. So we encourage you to apply as soon as possible. There are different categories, as you can see, but the committee will decide which one you would be best suited for. And just like with Craig, we love welcoming our alumni back. They get a 25% automatic scholarship, but you can apply for the maximum as well. And if you're seeking sponsorship from your employer, we'd be happy to send you a business case to support you with that. And just like Manal here, an HR or L&D professional, if you are in that kind of sector, you want to invest in and reward your top talent, these diplomas are a great way to do so if they are relevant, of course. And we do offer corporate rates. And the very last slide, there's always so much to share, but always limited time. So if you want clarity or further information, please do get in touch with Anuja or I. We'd love to hear from you, guide you throughout the process, and help you start on a really exciting journey with Warwick Business School. There's only one last thing to say, and that's thank you all so much for being here. And we look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye for now.
Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.